My son said to me the other day, he goes, Dad, I think part of your problem is, that you need to work out. He says, you're losing the weight, but it's slower. But you now got that part of it down, but you need to work out. You need to start exercising. You start doing things. The walking is not enough. Point well taken. While we're at a place waiting for lunch meat and stuff, we start coming up with an idea. Hey, we got an extra room downstairs that we really could use for a weight room. There it is. Don't have to wear a mask. It's just us. Don't have to worry about whether we slam weights down or anybody looking at us or whatever we're wearing or whatever. It's like, there it is. Just us. And instead of sulking about it and saying, you're right, son, but I don't know where to start about working out, he's like, well, why don't we do this? And I said, you know what? Why don't we use that? We had the paint that I had from a year and a half ago at least. We had the rollers I didn't even realize we had. We had all the supplies we needed and didn't have to buy a thing to do it. And we went down and made it happen last night. That's what I'm talking about. Victim of circumstances. I can't do that. Where are we going to work out? We don't have any room. We don't have any of this. We had it. It was all there. We just didn't look. Some of you got it right in your palm of your hand and you're blaming other people, including God, for your trials that you're in full control over. But then there's other times where he will allow things to happen, like we're going to talk about, that is out of your control. Joseph did the right thing, and yet he still ends up in a worse situation. Let's go to the next slide, honey. This is where we're going to look. Genesis chapter 39, verse 11 to 23. So remember, he's doing the right thing in this story, you're going to see. He's doing the right thing, and yet he gets pinched, as the old term would be, which means arrested. We're going to look at verse 11 and go from there. One day, he went to the house to attend his duties. Now, mind you, Joseph is technically a slave right now in a home of a governmental official, if you would, in Egypt. And he was sold as property to him. So, but the thing is, in the story, what's happened is he's gotten full favor over the whole household. And of course, he doesn't touch the wife, because the wife of the master, because that's a no-no. He knows this. But he's got, even though he's kind of a slave and has to be responsible and so forth, and doesn't have full freedom, he still has favor with God. So let's pick it up there. One day he went into the house to attend his duties. And none of the household servants were inside. And this is the wife. Okay, she's been hitting on him for a while. And she caught him by his cloak and said, "Come to bed with me." But he left his cloak in her hand and ran out of the house. When she saw that he had left his cloak in her hand and had run out of the house, she called her household servants. "Look," she said to them, "this Hebrew has been brought to us to make sport of us. He came in here to sleep with me, but I screamed. When he heard me scream for help, he left his cloak beside me and ran out of the house." My, oh my, oh my. Does the enemy love to twist things? Wait a minute. Before this, it said Joseph wasn't doing anything shady. He wasn't doing anything wrong. For over a year, she was hitting on him in the house. He had full reign while his master was out, and basically he was like the chief executioner for Pharaoh. Okay? He was doing a lot of work for Pharaoh. And when he was out of the house during the day, he was trusting another man who was a young, and it said good-looking man, to take care of his house. And here his wife is in there with him. And of course, she ain't loyal. And Joseph's like, no, can't do it, no, can't do it, no, can't do it. And finally, one day, the heat gets turned up, and she goes after him. And then accuses him. He didn't ask for that. He didn't raise his hand and said, "Oh, God, please, can you falsely accuse me of something?" He didn't ask for it. But God allowed it. Let's continue. Verse 16, she kept his cloak beside her until his master came home. Now, I want you to watch this, because the enemy just loves repeating a lie over and over again to make it look like truth. Over and over. Then she told him this story. Now, she said this to her husband. That Hebrew slave who brought us came to me to make sport of me. But as soon as I screamed for help, he left his cloak beside me and ran out of the house. But as soon as I screamed for help, she changed the words a little bit here. He left his cloak beside me. He didn't leave it. She took it. When his master heard the story, his wife told him, saying, "This is how your slave treated me." He burned with anger, and Joseph's master took him and put him in prison, the place where the king's prisoners were confined. Here we go. Falsely accused. It wasn't his fault. He did the right thing, and yet he got in trouble. See, this is the part about our faith that gets the rubber meets the road. Because we can do the right things and still get into a lot of hot water. We can stand up and do something called be a whistleblower, which they call you that, like in business and in politics even, that you see something that isn't right and you stand up for it and you know that probably you're going to get fired, you're going to immediately lose your job, and you'll be part of a lawsuit, which means you're going to be drug into this thing for a while, and there may not be another employer that may want to mess with you because you were a whistleblower. That's a huge, huge risk from a worldly perspective. But from a spiritual perspective, if we do right into God, and as our old church used to say, give the consequences to God, do right and give the consequences to God was the saying, then we have to count on him delivering us. And boy, did he deliver Joseph, as we'll find out later in the story. But here's the deal. It just changed. The accusations that the enemy will use through people, when they make it consistently, you start to hear it over and over again, you start to believe it. You start to hear it over and over again as a repetitive thing, and you start to believe the lie. Be careful what you watch, be careful what you listen to. Whether it's music, whether it's TV,
That's right.
whether it's, whatever, YouTube. If you continue to look at it over and over again and see it over and over again, you will start to believe it, whether it's true or not. Repetition is something that the enemy will use, and God. God uses repetition in his word because he wants us to have it in our head over and over again of who he is, how to live our life, why are we here, where we're going. The enemy will take that and twist it and say, no, you really need to listen to this and this and this and this. And over time, you continue to listen to it over and over again. You keep telling yourself, this is a good one. I was telling my son the other day, he made broccoli, and I'm not a big vegetable fan, but I'm changing that. I have to. And he made broccoli with some kind of really cool cream sauce. It's amazing. Now my wife, this is easy. And to him it's easy because they both like it. For me, this is a stretch. And so I ate a little bit of it with some steak. And with that taste, I really couldn't taste the consistency and couldn't taste much with it. And I was actually able to get it down me. Now, I hope my mom's watching. From the time that I was 1, or before that, I would eat some sort of liquid vegetable or whatever, but after that, apparently I spit it in her face, and that was the end of that. And for years, it was a war to get anything green in me other than salad. But here I am, 50 years old, realizing that if I don't change my ways, my health is going to be affected by this. So what I've done is, I've told myself for years and told others, I don't like vegetables. Number one, I was lying because I do like salad a lot. Well, what do you think that is? It's greens. And I did like V8 juice. So it was a mixture. It was a juice, but I liked it. But what I did was I told myself and told everybody else a lie. And I believed it. And so did everybody else. And so what happened is, no greens. I'm not getting anywhere near them. It's not happening. I don't even try them. Well, I mixed them in with this, Steve. If you just try this, maybe you have cheddar cheese on top of it. I don't want it. It says broccoli in it. I don't want it. I don't want to deal with it. I've already negated it, and I've already believed the lie that I've peddled to myself for a long time. So both my wife and my son have a job to do. And that job is they have to make things that is going to help me to acquire a taste for it, to change my thinking, to change my buds, my taste buds, to change it where I'm going to say, I do like this. I do like this. I want to do this. When you look at the circumstances and so forth, we have to change the way we look at the circumstance. That's what I'm trying to say. We go to the last slide, honey. And it's this.
There's another one after that.
Oh, is there?
Mhm.
Keep going. Where are we at?
You're here. Read this.
Oh, okay. I didn't read the last part of the scripture. Thank you, honey. Let's pick it up. We're still in verse 20. So there's more apparently. But while Joseph was there in the prison, the Lord was with him. He showed him kindness and granted him favor in the eyes of the prison warden. So the warden put Joseph in charge of all those held in prison, and he was made responsible for all that was done there. The warden paid no attention to anything under Joseph's care, because the Lord was with Joseph and gave him success in whatever he did. This is the second time now, in a major trial that he didn't ask for, that yet somehow, some way he had favor in it. I don't have time to get into it and don't want to make it a me story, but I can tell you that even now, I have watched God and all the stuff that I've been through, my wife and I have been through, I've still watched his favor upon us every step of the way in this trial. It's been going on for 13 years, just like this. And I'm saying to you that even in your trial, even in the things that you're a quote-unquote victim of circumstance of, God can still give you favor in the middle of it. He can still give you favor in the middle of the city, even though you're in a war zone. He can still give you protection. He can still give you power and authority to operate in the things that you need to do for that season. If you look at your life, though, and you look at woe is me all day long, that's exactly what you're going to get. Joyce Meyer was raped with her father from the time she was 8 years old until she was 18. And for a moment, she did have that. But when she realized and got saved and realized that she needed to go toward God and she needed to do the things that he wanted her to do, he now considers her a trophy. In his case, in his trophy case. Why? Because she went through the hard times. She went through the tough times and didn't look at it as, woe is me, my dad did this to me, I had no childhood, so therefore I'm not going to do anything. She decided to take up the mantle that God gave her and said, I want you to help people. I want you to speak my word. I want you to let my word transform you. She had the courage to go through it. Many of you don't have the courage to go through it. That's why you don't want to read the Bible. That's why you don't want to really come to church. It's because you don't want to come through it. Unless what's in it for me, you don't want to bother. And I'm not talking about here. I'm just talking about in general. You might not show up at any church. You might actually be just flipping Facebook and you just find us, or watching our YouTube channel. That's fine. But do you have the courage to go through the tough times? Do you have the wherewithal to go through the